Our lineup of experts for this webinar is a testament to our commitment to excellence, bringing together a diverse and esteemed panel of individuals with unparalleled knowledge and experience in the field. So I encourage all of you to actively participate, share your insights, and engage in robust discussions. Thank you for your commitment to this vital endeavor. Without further ado, I'm now going to hand over to the Director of UNESCO IGBA, Dr. Canton Worden, for his welcome remarks. So, Canton, if you are with us, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Salut. I think that the host has to put on my video, but maybe I can just do it in audio. And I hope that many of you are able to join. I had a few difficulties. Thank you all for being here. I mean, this topic is extremely important. The context of emergencies are broadening in many different ways in the African continent, and of course, including in the 19 countries of KIX Africa 19. At IGBA, we are expanding our work on those questions. Some of the questions that we're going to consider today will also give us some directions for what might be more useful. I don't want to speak too long and talk about generalities, but I do want to share one message, though, for all of you who are participating today. As you know, this is part of a series of 3 webinars on teachers, and we also will have on October 5th the World Teacher Day. And I wanted to mention, for those who may not know, a great initiative from the African Union Commission. They manage an Africa Continental Teacher Award. We believe at IGBA that recognizing outstanding teachers at the continental level as well as at the country level is something that is very important to do, to really give a public display of recognition to the profession as a whole, as well as to some individual teachers. And we will send you an invitation in case you're interested to join us for another webinar still on October 5th to celebrate outstanding teachers. Salut, let me stop here, not to take too much time. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Canton. Thank you for your welcoming words and for explaining the purpose of this webinar and for setting the tone. Without further ado, I am kindly asking Dr. Kebede Kassa Tizegai to take the floor for the keynote speech. Dr. Kebede will be talking to us about teacher development, an integral part of regional frameworks for teachers in crisis and emergency context, the experience of Intergovernmental Authority on Development. So Dr. Tise is the Senior Program Coordinator, Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation, ESTI at IGAT. So Dr. Kebede, you have the floor. Yes. Dr. Kebede, are you with us? Dr. Kebede? Colleagues, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. So, while waiting for Dr. Kebede to join us, and so as not to waste time, I am inviting Dr. Albachiu Kemiso, who is a lecturer at College Education and Behavioral Studies at Addis Ababa University, Ethiopia, to take the floor to set the space. And you will be talking about persistent challenges and promising practices for teachers in crisis contexts and refugee settlements in the Horn of Africa. Dr. Kemiso, I hope you are with us.
Yes, I'm with you.
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you very much for joining.
So can you see my slides? Can you see the slides, please?
Yes, we can see it. We can see
Good.
it. Please go ahead.
Thank you, ICBA team, for inviting me to this very important agenda in African context currently. My name is Alabacho Kemiso from Addis Ababa University, from the Center for Comparative Education and Policy Studies. The title of my presentation today is on persistent challenges and promising practices for teachers in crisis contexts and refugee settlements in the Horn of Africa. So my role is just to set the pace for more in-depth presentations and discussions that would follow. My presentation has the following outline. I will start by showing the magnitude of the crisis. Then I will immediately move to discussing the implications of the crisis for achieving SDG 4 goals. And then I will just outline the challenge for teachers in crisis and promising practices. Well, the crisis for education in general and for teachers specifically is the outcome of a combination of various factors, including conflicts and violences due to intercommunal conflicts, war, terrorist attacks. Climate crisis is also contributing hugely for crisis in education in general and for teachers in particular due to droughts, flooding, and wind. And in Africa, the IDPs and refugee situations are also contributing for crisis in education in various ways. And food insecurity, due to combination of all the other factors, is also another big challenge that's adding to the crisis for education in the continent. For example, if we take 2022, in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia, 23 million people were in need of food assistance. And this has created increasing dropout rates, increasing absenteeism. It has affected teachers and education systems in general. The COVID-19 pandemic that we have gone through and its impacts are also with us even today in terms of increasing learning poverty, but at the same time, other health-related problems like the cholera outbreak, malaria issues, all these things are exacerbating students' absenteeism, teachers' absenteeism, dropout, and all these things. So due to all these crises, according to UNHCR 2023 report, the world over, there were 108.4 million forcibly displaced population. And out of these, 65.5 million were IDPs, 35.3 million were refugees, and a majority of refugees are hosted by middle and low-income countries. And the IGAD region that we are focusing today is currently hosting more than 4 million refugees. In addition to refugees in this region, currently in the Eastern Horn of Africa and Great Lakes region, in March 20, as to the March 2023 report, there were close to 11.71 million IDPs, and a majority of them are in Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. Looking into the impact of this crisis on education, according to a report, recent report from Education Cannot Wait, 224 million school-age children across 73 countries were affected by the crisis. And out of this crisis affected school-age children, 72 million or 32% are out of school. And out of this school-age children, 53%, the majority are girls. And Sub-Saharan Africa is disproportionately affected by the crisis, accounting for 54% of the crisis-affected children. If we look specifically into Ethiopia, my country, by June 2023, 3.25 million children are out of school due to conflicts in many regions in the country. climatic challenge, and many other factors. Over the last 2 to 3 years, due to conflicts particularly, more than 8,000 schools are closed. So in addition to internal challenge that Ethiopia is currently facing, the country is also hosting close to 1 million refugees, and most of the refugees are hosted in refugee camps located in peripheral regions of the country. And from the school-going age refugee children, the majority of them are out of school, like 59% are out of school. And refugee education in Ethiopia is suffering from various challenges, including problems of access, problems of equity, problems of quality, safety, and security. When we look into challenges, we would say that the challenges imply that it is extremely difficult to achieve the goal, the SDG4 goal, without meeting the needs affected by the crisis due to multiple reasons, including, for example, the crisis are resulting into system failures where education systems are facing challenges to provide access, to ensure quality, and also to run education system properly. Due to crisis, we observe that there is lack of political will, where in some contexts, states may be unwilling to protect educational institutions and educational infrastructure, or in some instances, even states are involved in attacking educational institutions and infrastructure. And due to the crisis, capacity of education systems are extremely affected in terms of, destruction and damage in schools and educational infrastructure. And in this context, it's extremely difficult to have, in African context particularly, there is low knowledge and skills, or limited knowledge and skills in conflict-sensitive educational planning. This is another capacity issue. And at the same time, there are competing needs in the context of crisis that people need food, water, shelter, and for education to get priority in the context of these competing needs is extremely challenging, and education is usually come as the last priority. While these national challenges are around, there is also unpredictable and low financing from international arena, which is also making achieving the SDG goal 4 is less probable. And added together, all these challenges are magnifying existing challenges and inequalities for girls and women, for children with disability, for refugees and IDP children. And as the result, it is becoming extremely difficult to achieve the SDG goal 4 of ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. When we look into the implication of all these crises and the challenge that teachers are facing in a crisis context, or when we look this issue in the context of teachers in crisis, I think one of the biggest challenge that Africa and the Horn of Africa also facing is acute shortage of teachers, that the demand for teachers is extremely high, while the supply of teachers is affected by various reasons related to the crisis. For example, Sub-Saharan Africa needs to have additional 16.5 million teachers in 2030 to achieve the SDG goal 4. However, there is huge shortage of teachers due to days and displacement of teachers due to the crisis. There is huge absenteeism, attrition, and turnover of teachers in the continent. To put this in a context, some reports show that 7 out of 10 countries in Africa are currently facing acute shortage of teachers. So teacher shortage is the biggest challenge. Another challenge is funding for education in emergencies, where only 3% of global humanitarian funding is allocated for education in emergencies, while the demand is extremely high. And data in a context of crisis in education in emergencies is another big challenge, where there is lack of accurate and timely data on education in emergencies, on teachers, and in many other aspects. And in some countries like Ethiopia, there is no data in national AMIS system regarding education in emergencies. There are problems of data sharing among partners due to problems related to data sharing policy, different protocols, and all these things. There are also problems related to coordination and issues with standardization of teacher policy, where different agencies, national governments use or pursue different standards for recruitment, training, remuneration, professional development, and other issues related to teacher policy. And this is creating a huge problem with the coordination. Another challenge that I would just mention is problems related to teacher training system, where there is lack of trainings in education in emergency. For example, in Ethiopia, there is no courses or modules in education in emergency in teacher training system. There are problems related to lack of qualification and professional development opportunities for teachers in a crisis context. In-service training is another area of challenge. There are no formal arrangements, for example, for recognition of experiences certification or in-service training of refugee and IDP teachers. There are issues related, challenges related to small-scale and less organized psychosocial support for teachers who are already affected by crisis and teaching. Teachers' job satisfaction, safety, material and financial support is extremely insufficient and limited. And deployment is another issue where the most qualified, experienced teachers are deployed in a place, are not deployed to places where they are in most need. While there are all these challenges, there are also promising practices that we may draw on and we can leverage. One such promising practice is the contemporary global and regional policy shifts that put teachers at the center. These can include, among others, like the Sustainable Development Goal, the Education 2030 Framework for Action, the AU Agenda 2063, the Continental Education Strategy for Africa. All these have created a global, continental, enabling policy environments. And UNESCO and UNESCO ICBAS support to enhance capacities in teacher policy and professional development in African countries most affected by crisis, in terms of, for example, producing guides for teacher policy development, in terms of suggesting issues and options for teaching policies and learning outcomes in sub-Saharan Africa, and in some cases, undertaking in-depth case studies on crisis-sensitive educational planning. All these are providing useful resources, and this can be taken as a promising practice to draw on. There are new funding mechanisms dedicated for education in emergencies, for example, like Education Cannot Wait, the INE, and the several interagency resources to draw on and contextualize for specific national conditions on teacher policy and management in emergencies can be considered as another promising practice to look into and to leverage. And the global policy for inclusion of refugees into national systems and the national adaptation, for example, in Ethiopia, is also giving us a very important enabling environment to deal with refugees affected by the crisis. And in relation to this, the 2070 Djibouti Declaration on Refugee Education that the IGAD states shown commitment to include refugee students and teachers into national education system is another promising practice that we can look into. And also the current coordination mechanisms in education clusters that range from the global through to national and the subnational, and the coordination mechanisms which are now currently getting accepted, recognized better. This can be considered as another promising practice. Above all, currently, the increasing recognition of education in emergencies in national education policy and strategies and plans could be taken as another promising practice. And thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. You ended at the moment I wanted to ask you to wrap up, but it was really wonderful. So thank you very much, Dr. Ale Bashi Kemiso, for illuminating with concrete data the persistent challenges and promising practices pertaining to teachers in crisis context and refugee settlements in the Horn of Africa. You have mentioned challenges related to teacher training, related to deployment, related to motivation, and you name the rest. Your insights have been really invaluable in advancing our understanding of this critical issue, and we are really grateful for your expertise and dedication. I have just been informed that Dr. Kebede is with us. Dr. Kebede, can you confirm?
Yes, I'm with you now. I listened to the last statement you made.
Welcome, and we are sorry for the technical issues we faced that
thank you,
prevented
no
you from
problem.
joining.
Thank you, it's solving now.
So I am going to give you the floor, but let me inform the attendees that Dr. Kebede is a senior program coordinator of Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation, ESTI, I got. You'll be giving us the keynote speech on teacher development, an integral part of regional frameworks on for teachers in crisis and emergency context, the experience of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development. So Dr. Kebede, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, sir. And I really appreciate. Apologies for joining you late. I have a bit of the issue, but we solved it. Thank you. And having said that, welcome, colleagues. My name is Kabade Kasa. I'm the Senior Coordinator for Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation in IGAD. And glad to join you. You know, teachers are most important elements in the learning process everywhere, and especially so in refugee settings. And the teacher development initiative is very important everywhere, and we have to push on this agenda forward, because if we don't have qualified teachers, and if their qualifications are not recognized, if they are not motivated, and if they are not provided with the opportunity for career development in the form of training and continuous experience sharing, it is very likely that students will not achieve much and they will fail. Already the data is with you. I don't want to talk about numbers in Africa in general, and in my part of the region in particular. The population in displacement is growing every day, and we have to deal with both the displaced population and the population of the countries concerned in general. In this regard, the issue at hand is very critical in the education process, and unless we meet the needs of students and teachers, it is very, very unlikely that we'll be achieving the G4, SDG 4 in 2030. For this reason, it is very important to focus on teacher training, and I will take you to our experience in the implementation of the Djibouti Declaration. I thank the Ethiopian representative who mentioned the declaration as a starting point, but what is a declaration? What did we do? And what did we especially do with teachers? So I will give a presentation if time allows, but I welcome you all, and the meeting, as you have opened it already, is opened and confirmed. Thank you very much, sir. If I have time, I'll make 2 slides. One is outline, the title, and the other is outline. Yes, I can say. Thank you very much. So I can
Yes.
go ahead?
Yes, please. You can go ahead for the next 5 minutes with your
Okay,
slides.
thank you very
please.
much. So I will take only 5 minutes. Why the t-shirt I mentioned already? Because they are very important ingredients, and we have to focus. In fact, in the entire education system, but teachers are very vital. When we encourage, when we motivate, when we educate, when we train teachers, they will do the job, and that is our assumption, despite the fact that they may end up also elsewhere after training. Okay, the Djibouti Declaration has 5 key areas of focus. One is the qualification framework as a whole, that includes students and teachers. The second is debate. The third is inclusive education for refugees, in particular, IDPs, returnees, and persons of concern. The fourth is also accreditation of the qualification people acquire, and the fifth is cooperation, partnership, especially with international financial institutions. So the Djibouti Declaration was adopted in 2017 in December in Djibouti, and since then we have been implementing different components of the declaration. Today we talk about the key element, one key sub-element in the declaration, but an important element in the continental strategy in the IGAD regional policy on education and the implementation process, since then including the Addis Ababa Declaration of 2018 of accelerated implementation of the Djibouti Declaration. Why then the teacher, as I said, are important, and we have to develop their capacity. Capacity development is enshrined in the Djibouti Declaration. Training teacher is also highly articulated, and that is very important for the reason I mentioned. The initiative was designed in collaboration with GIZ. I thank very much our partner GIZ. In 2020, you know, 2020 was the year of COVID. We were sitting at home, but we developed terms of reference, and we announced UNESCO ICBA also applied, but unfortunately was not selected, not because of poor quality of the presentation or the submission, but a German company had to win for the obvious reason. So we got participate international, very organized and very committed. We use them. In fact, 2020 was a process of identifying the providers. We identified, notified, and we brought in. Then in 2021, we started with brainstorming with the countries selected. That is Ethiopia, Sudan, and Uganda. The national consultation went very well, and it was a very important process, because if countries have not bought the idea, it is very difficult to really implement. So we managed to secure their understanding, and also at the national level, we managed to mobilize a national secretariat coordinated by the Ministry of Education. So we started the training. First, it was designed to train 300 teachers, but we end up training 751 from the 3 countries. And I wrote a paper which was published recently, and I consider this as a great success because we saved resources and we use our resources very skillfully so that we maximize the benefit. You can see already how can we as a regional organization achieve if we are committed and determined and lead by example, and that is really very important. I want to articulate on the leading by example. So the training ended in November 2022. The year was ending in December, and we planned for phase 2 of the program of SIMPI that is coordinated by GIZ. But the teacher training program will continue towards the end of this year in a different way. So much so far for the teacher training and the initiative, but what are the lessons? The lessons are one, country ownership is very important. Two, regional commitment is critical also. Three, individual and collective leadership is very important. And four, the involvement of the partners right from the inception of the project to the end is very important. And in this case, GIZ was very committed to this success, and they assigned an individual who could work with us in IGAD, and really the success was partly as a result of their commitment. And third, the coordinators, both national and regional as well as international coordinators, were very much committed and working closely with the providers, colleges and centers of teachers training at the country level, and we counted much on them. They managed very much. What are the challenges? The challenges are many. One is very critical, the growing demand for more training by the countries in the pilot program and the other members. Actually, this requires a lot of resources, but this is for us a very big challenge in terms of thinking about how to address it. The second is you cannot control the trained teachers as how effective the training has made them. So I don't think we have monitored and evaluated the teachers at the school level, and that is important. Monitoring and evaluation of the program, monitoring and evaluation of the teachers, monitoring and evaluation of the satisfaction of the students. What is the way forward? There are a lot of challenges and no one to talk about them. But the way forward, continuing the teacher training is very critical, essential, and also involvement of many partners, especially at national level, is very important. And we have advised our members said to engage their national counterparts in the teacher development and incentivization program, because we cannot be everywhere as a regional organization. Our role is only to show how it can be achieved, and we have done that, but the countries have to take the continued ownership. And the third way forward is for us as regional and international organization to continue mobilizing resources and also monitoring at the national level. I think this much is enough. If you have any question, I will be ready to answer, but I want to share this for you. Thank you, sir. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Segai, for this very informative presentation. Thank you for shedding the light on the pivotal role of teacher development within regional frameworks, as demonstrated by the remarkable experience of the Intergovernmental Authority in Development. Thank you also for telling us more about the IGAT education program, and more specifically, the Djibouti Declaration and the lessons, challenges, and the way forward. Thank you very much for sharing your insight and expertise. I'm sure that participants will react to your intervention.
Thank you.
Now the time has come for the panel session. And for the panel session, we have the honor to receive 5 guests who will be talking to us about different topics. I'll be introducing you to them while they will be speaking. One of them, the first one, is Ms. Elena Mangi. I am wondering if Ms. Elena Wangi is with us.
Yes, Elena Wangoi.
Wangoi, sorry for mispronouncing it. Elena Wangoi, you are the Education and Early Childhood Advisor at World Vision Kenya. Is that so?
That's correct.
Thank you very much. And you're going to talk to us about building resilient practices and coping mechanism experience from World Vision Kenya. So if you agree with me, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Confirm that you can see my slides.
Yes, I confirm we can see it very well.
Thank you. Yes, today I want to talk about teaching in emergencies, building resilience practices, and coping mechanism. And I will be sharing more of our experiences as World Vision Kenya, some of the things that we are doing in terms of education. You are most welcome. Yes, so I'll talk about our strategic objectives and focus for what we are doing. We are currently implementing a strategy year 2021 to 2025. So I'll share some of the objectives. I'll also talk about the teachers in crisis and some of the challenges they are facing, and some of the coping mechanisms, and also innovation approaches that we are using in World Vision to support teacher professional development and also best practices. So currently in our strategy, we are targeting around 8.8 children in the country. And sorry, my screen is not moving. So we are targeting about 8.8 children, and 2.5 will be targeted with direct implementation, and 1.4 are children who are identified to be most vulnerable in the community. Sorry about the slides. I don't know whether my team can be able to share from your end.
Ms. Elena, do you want us to share your presentation?
Yeah, please do. Please do
okay.
From there. Yeah, please.
Okay, we'll do that. You can talk to our colleagues if you want, if the slide is correct. Good,
yes.
Excellent.
Yeah,
ahead,
that's okay. That's okay. So at the moment, in this strategy, we are looking at 4 technical areas: child protection and participation. We are also looking at integrated health and WASH, community engagement and sponsorship, and also child learning and household resilience. And this is where we are focusing on education component. And in this strategy, we are looking at the SGD4 on quality education, and specifically targeting children from 0 to 6 years. So we are working with mothers 0 to 3 years to support them on supporting early learning opportunities, and also working with the teachers who are supporting children in early years education going up to 9 years. So we can proceed. And we are in 43 area programs where we are implementing our programs in 33 counties. And our focus, we focus on areas which are ASO areas, areas which are marginalized. And also, we are also targeting the refugee settings. We also are looking at the urban informal settlements to support the teachers and children in those settlements, and also areas that we consider to be most vulnerable. These are some of the areas where we are doing our programs and targeting teachers in these areas. Our aim is just to build the teaching capacities for these teachers, to trying to support them. In some of these areas, we realize that we are working with teachers who are underqualified, others are not qualified, and we also we are working with teachers who are less motivated in these emergencies. So some of the challenges that these teachers are facing, it's about the not having the right qualifications, understaffing in most of the schools, especially in the urban informal settlements, and also in ASO areas and places which are very vulnerable, and they are very far maybe from even accessibility of schools are very, it's not very okay. Schools with the inadequate facilities, schools with low or inadequate teaching and learning resources, schools with a lot of absenteeism and also low enrollment, and also challenges of hunger and poverty, whereby children will miss school meals, and also inaccessibility of safe drinking water and other challenges. So these are some of the things that our teachers are facing in the context where we are implementing our programs. Next. So what are some of the coping mechanisms that we have employed as an organization? It's one of the promising practices where we have come up with innovative approaches. We have innovative approaches in World Vision International, which we are implementing also in Kenya. The other one is about continuous professional development to ensure that teachers who are not qualified, teachers who are coming direct from the teaching colleges with not so much skills and competencies are supported continuously. And also ensuring that we are responding to issues of emergencies, issues of child protection. We have programs and activity in regards to that. And also training the teachers and also the education officials on mental health and psychosocial support to ensure they are able to support the learners in school, and also they are able to understand how to cope with some of the challenges that are affecting them. And also looking at aspect of service delivery in terms of provision of teaching and learning materials, and also other resources, and also doing a lot of mobilization and sensitization to ensure that we have increased enrollment. These are some of the things that we are doing, some of the coping mechanisms that we have adopted as an institution, and also looking at the aspect of peer teaching, and also continuous mentorship of teachers through the curriculum support officers from the Teacher Service Commission, and also the Ministry of Education officials. And also trying to strengthen the systems, capacity building on the board of management, and also the head teachers to be able to allocate resources and also support the teachers in school. Next. Yes, so I want to talk briefly about our innovations in World Vision. Currently, our strategic focus on education, we are looking at education in early years, but of course supporting policy influence in primary education and also other levels of education. So I'll talk about the 4 models or 4 approaches that we are using or we have tested in World Vision to ensure that our teachers are continuously supported professionally. One of the innovation is we are calling it learning route. This is a model that targets teachers in early years, ECD centers, whereby we are training them on how to provide quality education, and also aspects of looking at the holistic development of children in terms of acquisition of the key learning skills, cognitive skill, executive function skills, language skills, numeracy skills, and also looking at provision of quality learning environment. So we are training teachers on how to support that, in addition to training parents on how to support learning at school. We are also, parents are trained on how even to provide resources, especially material development, using local resources that they come to school and develop, and also working with the community member to support learning at the community level, and also providing resources, and also trying to have that continuous professional development by engaging the sub-county ECD coordinators who do the coaching and mentorship on the ECD teachers. So this is one of the models that we are using. We also have another model that we are calling Unlock Literacy. Unlock Literacy is trying to build the capacity of teachers on the 5 reading skills, the language reading skills. So we do a lot of training on that to support teachers on how to train, how to teach learners the language components, grammar, comprehension, numeracy, alphabetical principles, phonological awareness. So we do a lot of capacity building using these models. We also look at a component of community action. This is where the community members come on board to support learning at the community center. So
Miss
we
Elena,
have, yes?
Can you wrap up, please, in the next
Yes.
2 minutes?
Oh,
Please.
it's all right.
Thank
So
you.
the other model is about learning through play, where we have the integration of play in the classroom experience. Teachers are trained on that, on how even to support with materials, locally available materials, and also the component of digital learning. This is a project that was funded by KIX. We are calling it KIX IDLC, Ablalit, whereby teachers are trained on how to integrate technology in learning. And pupils are also given access to this content, which is uploaded, and the content is it is aligned to the CBC, to the competency-based curriculum. We also do a lot of activities with the community members and parents to support all these initiatives. So there is a lot of capacity building to the parents, to the community, to the school leadership, and also to the board of management. Some of the strategies that we have seen working for us, one of them is the community of practice, whereby teachers come together to share the experiences and also the successes, and they are able to motivate each other. We are also looking at capacity building, whereby we work with the Ministry of Education, Teacher Service Commission, to ensure there is that continuous training of teachers. And also aspect of coaching, whereby we have innovations. We have a tool or an application where we do the classroom observation, and it is recorded in a dashboard or a platform whereby we get feedback to see how we can continuously support these teachers. So there is that aspect of integration of ICT. There is also so much on gender equity and social inclusion in all this, in all our activities, and also looking at mainstreaming and inclusion of learners with the specific difficulties and also disability, and also working with diverse partners at the local level, national level, and other civil societies to ensure that we are able to support teachers, especially teachers in the crisis settings where we are operating. So these are some of the coping mechanisms that we have employed. And yes, that is the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Elena, for this very, very informative presentation. And I know that participants will agree with me if I say that I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Ms. Wangoi, Elena Wangoi, for sharing invaluable insights on teaching in emergencies and the development of resilient practices and coping mechanism, drawing from the experience of World Vision Kenya with its 33 program areas of the 33 countries. The coping mechanism you are using to build resilience and the learning components are most appreciated. Your expertise and dedication in this field have enriched our understanding, I'm sure, and have provided us with actionable knowledge. Thank you very much again. Before going to the next panelist, let me remind participants that they are free to share their comments and questions in the chat. And our colleague Kasumi will convey those questions and comments to the different panelists. Now has come the time to introduce our second panelist, Mr. Simon Dale. I'm not sure I have pronounced it well. Mr. Simon, are you with us?
Yes, I'm present.
Good. So, Mr. Simon, you are the program manager, education, Windle International, Uganda. You are based in Uganda.
Yes, please.
And you are going to talk to us about innovation and best practices on teacher management, motivation, and data system in a crisis setting. If that is so, I give you the floor.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and you have 10 minutes to deal with your presentation, please.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I hope my slides are visible.
Very visible, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. You've already introduced me. On behalf of Window, we are very grateful for the opportunity to be part of this webinar. And as said, my presentation is going to look at the areas you've mentioned. Yeah, next slide there. Okay, this is just about our organization. We are an international organization working in Uganda, and Window is part of the Window International, which has independent organizations in Africa and the UK. Our mandate is to provide access to quality and inclusive education and training, especially for refugees. And this is what we have been doing in the past 26 years, being a lead implementer of education in partnership with United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Uganda. We currently operate in 15 locations where we have set up our bases, our offices, and in our interventions, we support 64 early childhood development centers. We have 153 primary schools, 17 secondary schools, and 4 vocational centers. We support up to 3,200 teachers who cover these levels, the levels I've just mentioned, and we reach out to now 371,000 learners. Next slide. In terms of what we have been requested to share, the best practices in teacher management, at Window in the locations that we support, we help looking at teachers to upgrade their qualifications. Uganda now has got a policy where in the next 10 years, every teacher will be expected to have a degree. And therefore, what we are doing is to encourage our teachers to upgrade and take opportunities that are available. We have in-service trainings where our teachers are enrolling. And we also, where possible, support them with scholarships to upgrade their qualifications. In order to see that our performance is adequate and in line with the national programs, there is joint supervision which is done with the district education officers. These are the government delegated officers who do supervision of teachers. We partner with them. We're together with the other implementing partners to look at how the teachers are performing. So this encourages the teachers to make sure that even when they move out, they are still not surprised with what taking out, what is within the settlements is actually what takes place outside. What we refer to as clinical supervision is a staff to teacher, one-on-one supervision of teachers, looking at how the teacher has planned their lessons, their presentation, and immediately after that, we give feedback. Of course, this helps in making decisions like at school level. It's a basis for promotion. It's a basis for transfers. So we do that as often as possible. So integration of ICT is one practice that we have embraced, and this has helped us so much in easing the role of teachers in dealing with high numbers. So we have computer labs, and we have distributed tablets, up to 1,000 tablets in the 17 schools, where the secondary students are now able to do their own research and eases the work. So our teachers are more of facilitators. Next slide, please. Another issue is continuous professional development. In that picture, you can just see that is one of the schools that were established. And at that time, all those children were in a class. So it is too much. So in order for teachers to be able to handle such, and even in the real classrooms now, the teacher-pupil ratios are so high, going up to 1 teacher for 150 children. So professional development is very key in terms of seeing how these teachers in the midst of this, they can safeguard the learners. There is inclusion. There is a way they deal with the special needs learners. Next slide. In terms of motivation, our teachers are confident that when we take them on, the recruitment process is aligned to that of the national program. And then also, as part of motivation, the teachers have access to National Social Security Fund. These are benefits that come to a teacher in case he has worked with us and is either retiring or changing. They are able to go out with some saving. In the national system, they have a pension system, but here we have got the NSSF. So subscription to group personal accident, in the unfortunate event of death, the teacher is compensated. Then there is collaborative disciplinary with the school structures like school management committees and parents teachers associations. Next. As part of motivation, we provide accommodation where need be. That picture up is one of the modern houses that can be provided when finances allow. But in the event that there are no finances, you can see in a set, that is what the parents and teachers can contribute to make the teachers' lives comfortable and also be able to continue serving. Next. In terms of data management, we try as much as possible to do it, to make sure that the teachers log in and log out. This is done manually through attendance sheets. And then teachers also have a payroll. They are on payroll, and we capture key data about their presence in our schools with unique codes. So we are able to trace and track a teacher, transfer them from one school to another. And then each teacher also, we keep personal records. They have personal files where their biodata is captured, their progress in terms of performance and appraisals on an annual basis is also kept. And we keep all this in order to make sure that our teachers are tracked, and we are able to give recommendations where where need be.
Mr.
This is part
Simon,
of what we do.
Ms. Simon,
Yes, please. Yes.
I'd be grateful if you could sum up, wrap up in the next 2 minutes. Sorry for that.
Yeah, please. I think I'm almost there.
Oh.
What does next slide say? I think this should be our aim. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Simon, from Windle International. And thank you very much for shedding light on innovation and best practices in teacher management, motivation, and data system within the challenging context of crisis. Your insights about best practices of Windle International in Uganda have been a beacon of knowledge, guiding us toward more effective strategies in education during emergencies. Thank you very much for your invaluable contribution. Just as a reminder, I said at the beginning that our colleague Marianne from KIX 19 Hub is the chat moderator. I confirm that she is the chat moderator, and she'll be conveying the observation, the questions and comments to the different panelists. So thank you very much, Marianne, and thank you once again to Mr. Simon. Now I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Nixon Odongo. Mr. Nixon, are you with us? Mr. Nixon?
Yes, I am present.
Very good, Mr. Nixon, head teacher in Uganda. You're going to talk to us about strategies for promoting teachers' well-being, management, and school leadership in crisis settings. What works? Okay, we will not say what doesn't work, but what works. So, Mr.
Thank you.
Nixon, please go ahead for 10 minutes.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Bea Clear. You've already introduced me. May I have to share my presentation, or it is there?
If Kasumi has it. Kasumi, do you have the presentation?
We haven't received it. Can
so
you share
Mr.
from
Nixon,
your side?
We are sorry, we have to ask you to share from your side then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I may start as we are sharing it soon. I am a head teacher of a secondary school in Uganda, specifically in Kiriandongo refugee settlement. The slide is, are we able to view it?
Yes, we can see it. It is very visible.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Then we move on. Yeah, so Kiriandongo refugee settlement is one of those operations being managed by Windle International Uganda. And straight to the topic for discussion here, the strategies for promoting teachers' well-being, management, and school leadership in this context of crisis. I am presenting what works. My presentation is from the practical point of view as a head teacher in this setting for about 5 to 6 years now. But first of all, the teacher's well-being. So I look at it from the point of a teacher having a positive emotional, social, physical, and economic state. So when we talk of teachers' well-being, we are referring to those. And this has a great influence on the teacher's behavior out and inside the classroom, as well as the entire school. But also it has a direct link on learners' achievement. So we do not want to leave out the managers and school leaders. These are also teachers. Personally, I am a teacher, even if I am a head of that institute. So teacher well-being can be attended to at various levels. The teacher has a responsibility, community, other stakeholders like PTA, the Board of Governors, other partners, but also at policy level, this can be addressed or attended to. As we move on to the next slide, what works in crisis context? I am giving the context in practical sense. One, the appropriate induction practices for teachers is key. When teachers are introduced and they know what the experience is likely to be in the crisis context, they get prepared. The second one is the appropriate leadership and management styles. In the crisis context, participatory management is key. The teachers get involved in decision-making and key elements of learning institutions. And so when they get involved, they own whatever decisions occur. Number 3 is the relevant classroom management strategies. I have given an example of behavior monitoring, flexible teaching methods, and team teaching. So we have to monitor. Most of our classes are big. The teacher-learner ratio is high. And so we need to be flexible. And really it has worked, and it does work. Number 4, the long-term employment contracts for teaching personnel and the school leaders is a motivation. Teachers are motivated to stay and take time on their job. 5 is the conducive school culture and environment, like the clear communication, recognition of teachers' efforts, confidence that is in the school leaders. If staff are supported, all this works. Then we have the professional development opportunities to teachers. We have trainings, and then we have scholarships for further studies. So this works because teachers gain more knowledge and they are able to perform in their line. So as we move to the next slide, on the next slide, what works, we have task sharing. I'm delegating some of the responsibilities that teachers should have performed. For example, guidance and counseling can be done by members of the community. Some of the challenges that the learners may have their origin in the community. So this can be a shared task, and it has really worked in the school, in the crisis setting, for example, where I heard it is yielding results. Then we have availability and provision of instruction and scholastic materials. In crisis settings, most times, infrastructure may be a challenge due to overwhelming numbers, but when the materials are available, even under the shade, teaching and learning can occur. This has worked for us. And then finally there we have psychosocial support given to teachers. So for us to have a healthy teacher with an upright mental state, this is adequate. Then we have inadequate training. On the next slide, I wish to present some key challenges here. Inadequate training of teachers, specifically on special needs learners. Most of the teachers have trainings obtained from colleges, yes, but it is not a specialized training on this particular area. So they have limited knowledge to support. But if more trainings, maybe at a postgraduate level, is done, then they would have more capacity, they would be empowered more. Then we have the high teacher-learner ratio, which is unavoidable because of the situations in crisis areas. For example, if a war breaks out, you just realize numbers get so high, and that becomes a challenge. And then we have the high turnover rate of the teachers. High turnover rate of the teachers. Well, currently in Uganda, there is a policy on science teachers being paid higher remuneration by government. And so this is causing us a high challenge where teachers leave and we have to look around to have them replaced. So in summary, in my observation from the practical point, every teacher is a manager at whatever level. If a classroom teacher is a classroom manager, a head of department is a manager, a sports teacher is a manager, and so the well-being of all teachers, therefore, matter. only that the head teacher or the deputy have an additional role, but really all teachers are managers at their level. And then management of teaching and learning in crisis contexts requires a collaborative effort. And in fact, involvement of various parties and stakeholders is key, because decision-making is not only by the school. All the partners play particular roles at one stage or the other. And so without collaborating, then teaching and learning in crisis contexts may not move on well. The other key element in crisis situation is teamwork. We look at teamwork as an abbreviation, which means together everyone achieves more. With the teamwork, it is very easy to manage learners of diverse background, and therefore this is one of the things, one of the components, values that we have appreciated and has worked for us. And then finally, flexibility in all aspects of school operations is a significant role in accommodating learners and teachers of diverse background. Flexibility in teaching, in management, in all activities that take place in a school. So this is it that has worked for us. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Nixon, for this presentation. So we really extend our heartfelt appreciation to you for sharing enlightening strategies aimed at promoting the well-being, effective management, and inspirational school leadership of teachers within the crisis setting. Your expertise and insights have illuminated a path toward ensuring a nurturing and resilient educational environment, even in the face of adversity. I could not agree more with you when you say that every teacher is a manager and a leader, and teamwork is the key. And I really appreciate the phrase, the sentence you have given us about teamwork. Together, every achievement works. So thank you very much, Mr. Nixon. Just as a reminder again, our colleagues Marianne and Kasumi are in control for the chat moderation. Now I come to the next presenter, Dr. Ula Abu Amsha. Doctor, are you with us?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much for being with us. You are the coordinator, Learning and Development INEE Secretariat in Switzerland. And you were going to make a presentation about supporting the well-being of teachers in emergencies and crisis context in Africa, the role of INEE. So the floor is yours for 10 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much. So thank you for inviting me to this event. And I hope I will bring something, positive energy into it. So today I will take a specific angle of supporting teachers in crisis and in emergencies, which is teacher well-being, and share with you what is INEE providing in this sense. But before I go to teacher well-being, it's maybe good to introduce INEE to those who are not familiar with the network, so that it becomes clearer for them. INEE is a network, a global network, and open to everyone who is interested in education emergencies. So we are more than 20,000 individual members, and we have partners that goes to 4,000 organizations. So everyone at INEE is interested in one specific objective, which is providing everyone with the access to quality and safe education for everyone, even in emergency situations. So this is our mission, and this is what gathers us together. And so everyone can join the network, and we also work with many partners to support the education in emergencies. So this is where I work, and this is where many of the participants, I think I saw so many familiar names, are also collaborating. So let me first discuss why teacher well-being, teacher in emergency situation is important. So I think sometimes we forget, we see the teachers as heroes, and we forget that they share the same strengths, the same challenges as their students. So they have the same experiences. They might be displaced, they might be fleeing from conflict, and they might be suffering from grief. And so they need to receive the same support as their students. And it should not be just, as it was traditionally seen, as part of taking care of the students. So originally we were saying that supporting teacher well-being was essential to support the student well-being. And starting from a few years ago, ANI and its partners were trying to change this perception and setting teacher well-being as a specific goal per se. So it's not only to support students, but also to support the teachers themselves as educators and actors in education emergencies. And this became really visible last year. So that the efforts started a few years ago, and it became visible to everyone last year in the Transforming Education Summit, where it was said that supporting teacher is really essential to educational transformation, and we cannot do it without them. So we need to support them with training, with psychosocial support, with compensation and all that. So this is why teacher well-being is something that is essential, and we can even see that it can be part of a solution for teacher shortages. This was mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, where it was mentioned that there's big shortages in teachers everywhere, almost everywhere in the world. So supporting teachers with their well-being is something that can help overcome this attrition and teachers who decide to abandon. So let me share with you a few resources and some work that ANI is doing to support teacher well-being. So if we go back to few years ago, even before 2016, because it was launched in 2016, ANI and its partners, specifically the Teacher in Crisis Context Working Group, they were working on a package a training package for teachers from crisis contexts. It was designed for teachers who are unqualified or underqualified in crisis contexts. And as part of this training, there was a clear component towards supporting their own well-being. So during the training, to become good teachers, delivering training in pedagogy or in curriculum or class management and planning and all that, there was also a component around well-being. And following that, ANI was engaged in a multi-year project that was to build a teacher well-being toolkit. So my colleagues started the group. They started with a landscape review to see what is available. What does that mean to talk about teacher well-being in low resources and crisis contexts? And then they also created a mapping and a gap analysis of the resources that exist to support teacher well-being. And in 2022, we delivered a teacher well-being guidance note that would help to implement actions and practices and activities towards improving the teacher well-being. And with this work, there was also a publication of promising practices and case studies about specifically teacher well-being, and some of them were also submitted from Uganda and South Sudan, for example. And the last piece that we were working on is that is the guidance note and how this guidance note can be applied in the different contexts. I will come to this in seconds. So just the main principles that the guidance note is bringing forward are that we need to assure 3 principles for teacher well-being. First of all, to promote their access to mental health and psychosocial support. Similarly to what is done for students, we need also to support teachers with MHPSS services. The second principle is about creating an enabling work environments for them, similar to what we say about safe learning spaces. So we need also to have safe and engaging and enabling working spaces for teachers. And the third principle is about supporting the leadership of the teachers and empowering them and making their voices heard. So these are the 3 principles that the guidance note is trying to promote. And as we are talking about promotion of teacher well-being, we and through the work of the different teams, it was clear that what we mean by teacher well-being is really depending on the context. So INI and the teacher well-being project team worked on some tools to help contextualizing teacher well-being guidance notes. And there was, for example, a contextualization specific for Kakuma camp in Kenya, where we asked the teachers to define in their own words, in their own languages, what does that mean to talk about well-being. So this is one example that is from Kenya. And then recently we released a workshop, a tool that is it's supposed to help the contextualization of the teacher well-being guidance note to different contexts. So we had contextualized the guidance notes for different countries, and now we have a tool that would help anyone to contextualize any activities in supporting teacher well-being in different contexts. So these are few work that we are offering towards teacher well-being, and INI is really very active in all the venues where we try to support teachers, and we will continue our work. And we have also a teacher in crisis context working group that is taking the teacher well-being activities very seriously and continuing to support this in the coming months and years. And with this, I think I can stop here, and I'm happy to go into further detail if this is of interest later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amsa, for presenting the International Interagency Network for Education in Emergency, INI, and for shedding the light on the crucial role of INI in supporting the well-being of teachers in emergency and crisis contexts across Africa. Your insights, I think, have been very instrumental in advancing our understanding. Thank you very much for your contribution. Now, I come to the last but not the least presenters, our colleague, Peter Wallet. Peter, are you with us? I saw that you were with us from the beginning.
Yes, I'm here, Salyu. Hello.
Thank you very much, Peter, for joining us. I preside that you are the Senior Project Officer at the International Task Force on Teachers, we call communally TTF for education. And you are going to talk to us about crisis-sensitive teacher policy and planning. presentation on teacher policy development guide. So teacher, you have the floor for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Salyu, and greetings to all participants, and Victoria, and to Quentin and everyone else. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about crisis-sensitive teacher policy and planning. I'm just going to give a very quick presentation. In particular, it's to highlight the module that the Teacher Task Force and UNESCO, with a bunch of other partners as well, you can see them listed at the bottom of the page, came together to develop this critical new module that is part of the Teacher Policy Development Guide, which you might be aware of. It's a product that we've been working on for a number of years, and we've been advocating for it strongly since it was published in 2019. It became very clear that this was inadequate in a sense, and that we need to have more information also around crisis-sensitive teacher policy and planning. So this forms a cross-sectional module of the guide itself. It is part of a wider framework that advocates for holistic teacher policies. So we recognize that teacher policies need to be aligned to national objectives and the other strategic policy and planning documents. So again, this module is really focusing on the issue of crises and emergencies, and it provides a number of directions for policymakers to questions and things to think about, and all these really critical areas that impact on teachers during crises. Next slide, please. Can we just move the slide one for? Yeah, thank you. So so what are the impacts on education? Just back one, please. So we know that crises, they have huge impacts on the continuity of education, not only on the continuity, but of course also on the quality. There's a growing number of internally displaced persons around the world. So this is a really critical piece of policy-making tool that countries can use at their disposal to sort of think about crises and emergencies in a much more holistic way, and to bring all the pertinent questions together. So we know that generally that in most country contexts, governments are unprepared to prevent and respond to crises. And this document will help them to plan better and have a more decisive role in terms of developing plans and policies. Of course, there are harmful effects of crises on children, on social well-being, physical well-being, and ultimately on learning outcomes. But this also has an impact on teachers. So we often sort of think about the impacts on students, but also what are the impacts on teachers, and how do these also affect students themselves in terms of teacher shortages, the high level of absenteeism, attrition, but also just basic issues related to security and well-being of teachers. And ultimately also in terms of the quality that teachers are able to deliver under these harsh and difficult circumstances, relating to overcrowded classrooms, as some other speakers have alluded to, the lack of materials, and inadequate skills in order to deal with these difficult issues. Next slide, please. So the module sort of repackages the Teacher Policy Development Guide, and it looks at 4 key policy areas that you see. Those being around recruitment, how to deploy teachers in crises and retain them. Second of all, the issue around their training and education. The third around working conditions, and the fourth around information sharing and consultation. Next slide. So just a bit of structure around this module. So for each of these 4 areas, it'll talk about the particular challenges. So it sort of provides a literature review and an understanding about what are the particular challenges that teachers have, what are the objectives that policymakers need to have in mind, what are particular strategies that are evidence-based that have been used in order to deal with these challenges. Then it goes also into detail around some examples and case studies from countries, and lists also of useful resources that the readers and users can use. Next slide, please. So just quickly talking about recruitment, deployment, and retention. I mean, the main issue here is shortages, not just of the numbers of teachers, because teachers, there could be teachers that are no longer available to teach, injuries, people leaving the country for a number of reasons. There are a lack of teachers. There are a lack of qualified teachers. There are precarious contractual arrangements. Teachers find themselves in new situations where the contractual arrangements are not clear. Absenteeism, turnover. These are all issues that are related and have a direct impact on the quantity of teachers. Gender gaps can be, in these harsh situations, can become exacerbated. So a lack of female teachers in many situations, which becomes even more so, perhaps in some crises. Also a lack of quality data, of course, to support deployment. So deployment is difficult at the best of times, and this is an even more difficult time to do so. We know that, I mean, it's ultimately, we know it's around collecting data, and this is not a simple thing to do, of course, but it's the surveys that we can use can collect data on, who are the teachers that are available, retired teachers, teachers that are out of service that would like to come back into teaching. There's a number of, just having a basic idea of who the teachers are and what's their availability, what are their skills, what are their needs, and what can they offer. Strategies include entry requirements and having criteria in order to define teachers that are needed to rapidly recruit and deploy qualified teachers in these situations. Also, strategies around ensuring the recognition of teaching certification, so prior teaching experience, and what are the different types of certifications that can be sort of used, and what are the criteria, and how do we decide what is a skilled teacher in these situations. So the objectives, the policies really need to focus on retention. So it's really about attracting the teachers to this difficult situation and retaining them there. The chapter goes into details around sort of case study around refugee camps and how important related data was, and the accuracy of that data and how important it was in terms of planning. So I encourage you strongly to read some of the case studies in the chapter. Next section. So around training, so there's threats of continuity. So in terms of the teacher training that teachers receive, they lack training on non-traditional topics. So although of course the curriculum is maintained as much as possible, there are other things that students need to know about. There are other things that teachers need to know about. So there's a lack of training on some of these topics around crisis and some of the basic threats to basic security, that these are areas that teachers don't normally have. Also non-traditional methods where you don't have the typical kind of standard tools and ICT, I mean, basic blackboards. How could the teachers don't have the skills perhaps in order to know how to use pedagogical skills that maybe they're not used to using. Non-traditional settings, teachers, yes.
Could you please wrap up in the next 2 minutes?
Yes, of course, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So, so in terms of the training, I mean, there's a lot of things that teachers are not, skills they don't have. The psychosocial support. So again, we need to have a better understanding of what their skills are. Needs assessments can be done, frameworks for recognition of in-teacher service training, and coordination, of course, with teacher training providers. Again, there's some more examples that you can look at from the chapter around CHAD and how career pathways have helped teachers sort of adapt and become skilled also to work in the host country as an important example that can be examined. Next slide, please. So just quickly about working conditions. Of course, we know the working conditions are very difficult. And there's a number of strategies that can be used also to deal with this, which are outlined through the report around providing adequate teaching and learning materials and space, equitable allocation of financing so that teachers are all treated equitably. And of course, psychosocial support is very key. And the next slide, please. And also, this is the final policy area around information sharing. Here, the objective basically is social dialogue. So decisions that are taken need to involve teachers, including teachers in crisis situations. So their inputs are really critical to really meet their needs as they are in difficult situations, and their voices really matter. So consultation with teachers, communication tools, social media, peer support groups, all these things can go a very long way in terms of information sharing and addressing the needs that teachers have. And again, once again, as in all the areas, there are examples from countries such as Kenya in this case. Next slide. And yes, sorry, that was the last slide. So that covers the 4 areas. That was a really rapid run through of the module, but I encourage you strongly to look it up online, and I'm happy to answer any questions, of course, during this session or even afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter Wallet. Very warm and heartfelt thanks to you, our colleagues and friends from TTF, for providing invaluable insights into the development of crisis-sensitive teacher policies and planning, exemplified through the Teacher Policy Development Guide. It's always a pleasure to welcome you, and you know it, in our events, actually your events at IGBA. Your expertise in this area has enriched our understanding of the critical role of policy in responding effectively to educational challenges in crisis context. So thank you very much, Peter. And I would like to thank all our 5 panelists for the insightful presentation they have provided us with. And I hope that all participants have taken good notes. And for the questions and observations, our colleague Marianne, who is the chat moderator, I think will convey the questions to the panelists. So this being said, I give the floor to Marianne for the observations she might have before giving back the floor to the panelists. Marianne?
Hello, Saliu, thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, awesome, thank you. We've been getting some good questions and comments, but we encourage you to ask more questions. We do have some time, so please feel free to make some comments in the chat box or the Q&A. Overall, the comments seem to be quite appreciative of the presentations that were shared today. There are 2 practical questions or comments that I'd like to give first, and then some content-related ones. So just a practical comment to the presenters that if you have not yet shared your slides with the UNESCO ICBA team, please do so that we can share them with participants. There's a lot of interest in receiving the slides later on today. Another practical question that's already been answered in the chat box was for INEE. There was a question about whether these resources can be accessed by anyone publicly. And we have received the answer already. Dr. Amsha has shared the link in the chat box, and I will be reposting it here. These are INEE resources that are available to anyone online. So please see that comment if you're interested in those resources. Other than that, Saliu, we do have some questions from participants. Not a lot yet, hoping to get some more. But would you like me to give them all at once or one by one?
You can give them one by one, and question will keep coming, maybe, since there are many.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So the first question is directed to both Simon and to Mr. Odong Nixon. The question is, other than remuneration, what other strategies are being used to address the high turnover in the refugee settlement schools? So other than remuneration, what other strategies are being used to address the high turnover in the refugee settlement schools?
This is Simon. Thank you so much for that question. The high turnover, most of the teachers who leave the refugee schools move to government. So what we are doing is to code, to register, to see that the schools are coded and taken on by government. The government of Uganda is doing that. So it's our role to ensure that we have registered these schools and they are coded. Once the school is coded and the government takes it on, then the teachers who are there have an opportunity to apply and be taken on as government, so as government teachers. So in such an instance, they become, what they go for is being on government payroll, which is permanent, more permanent, and more pensionable. So if we do this to the settlement schools, then that has encouraged teachers, especially when they see that that process has started. Then two, we're encouraging teachers to go for upgrading, and usually that helps them to stay with a hope that at least there will be an opportunity for them to upgrade, especially when they are upgrading on scholarship, then they will stay. But thirdly, also, the continuous capacity development, we've seen this changing the attitude of teachers to focus more on the inner satisfaction that they get when they see that their effort is supporting a refugee, for example, to get a better life in the future. So this keeps them going to see how their students are faring and how they are doing, and looking at, expectant at what they will be in the future. Those are some of the initiatives we are putting in place. Thank you.
Marianne?
Thank you, Simon, for your answer. I hope that it's clear to participants. And maybe Mr. Odong would like to weigh in too on this. The question was addressed to both of you. I don't know if he's still with us. Mr. Odong Nixon, the question, if you'd like to weigh in, is that other than remuneration, what other strategies are being used to address the high turnover in the refugee settlement schools?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. In regard to the science teachers who are getting a higher pay compared to our teachers in the crisis setting, there are approaches that we are putting in place. One of them is that all teachers we are trying to provide accommodation for all teachers so that teachers are at school, and in return that will reduce on the expense that they would have incurred on getting accommodation elsewhere. Then number two, the other strategy is we are offering other benefits to teachers apart from salaries. There are financial benefits. We have financial allowances for extra lessons conducted, for remedial work done. We have allowances for marking and assessment of the learners' work. So by that, teachers are able to have some earnings apart from their salary. The third one is to encourage the teachers. We are involving teachers in decision-making when it comes to matters that affect teaching and learning. So if teachers know the reality on the ground, we are able to get together and move with the hope that tomorrow will be better. And finally, the previous presenter has actually hinted on what we are also preparing, that is to have the schools in crisis setting coded and grant aided by the government of Uganda. We have so far written documents and requests to the government of Uganda to have these schools taken over so that our teachers also begin to get the pay that other teachers in other schools are benefiting from. So those are the strategies, but I think the last one is a more sustainable approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Nixon, for that response. Okay, we do have a couple more questions coming in. I'll try to be brief here, Saliu. We had a question to Peter. How can we set policies that respond to the needs of teachers in currently unfolding security crises in the eastern regions of Somaliland? So again, the question is for Peter Wallet. How can we set policies that respond to the needs of teachers in currently unfolding security crises in eastern regions of Somaliland? I hope you were able to hear.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a broad question. I mean, my response to that would be basically, is I think that, I mean, these types of forums, I mean, provide the kind of the lessons that one can pick up. So ultimately, I mean, the policy has to be sort of, contextualized to the situation. So, I mean, there's a lot of steps that have to happen in terms of understanding the nature of the different policies, the different plans that are in place in the country, and sort of making sure, because we always talk about kind of a aligned and holistic policy. So it needs to be aligned to the policy that's there, although it's got to be very responsive as well. So, because I mean, crises sort of can come out of nowhere, or and they can be very sudden. So I mean, policies have to be very responsive. So I think some of these kind of basic principles need to be sort of taken into consideration. It's, again, the guide, the teacher policy development guide, but also this module that I've been talking about, it really kind of provides that kind of basic thinking that that policymakers, if they're not familiar with how to think about this in a holistic way, in a comprehensive way, it provides all those kinds of questions and all those different areas that one needs to consider. And of course, there's all the interrelationships between all the different dimensions, whether it's around the education and the training, about retention and the salaries, and how governments will finance all these different struggles and these challenges around teachers. I mean, this document provides a lot of food for thought about what the first steps are. But I think it's also, I mean, lastly, I'll just say it's really important to have a good situational understanding of the context, looking at past conflicts in the area, in the region that is in the Horn. And I think a better understanding of all these kinds of issues, bringing it together, is where to start. So it's really about informing yourself about context, but careful planning and thinking ahead in a comprehensive way. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you for addressing that question. Now we're getting a lot of questions and comments. It's turning to be a good discussion. If I could direct the question back to Mr. Nixon, there are two questions that have come in for you. I'll group them together if that's okay. They're both a little different. One of them is from Shem Bodo of Adea. He's asking, what solutions are the schools proposing to deal with the challenge regarding science teachers being paid more? So the challenge of paying science teachers more, what solutions are the schools proposing to deal with remuneration for science teachers? And also there's a question about responsibilities such as guidance and counseling, which is delegated to community members, but how well trained are the community members to carry out these services for learners? I hope the questions are clear. I can repeat them if need be.
Yeah, thank you. The questions are clear. In the first question regarding the science teachers, we are advocating. It's an advocacy that we are putting forward to have the science teachers in crisis setting be paid to the level of those in the government settings. So the remuneration, that's why I talked about other payments, financial motivation that we give our teachers apart from the salaries that they earn, so that at the end of the month, in top of the salaries that we have, they are able to get money for extra work done, extra teaching, remedial lesson, assessment, so that at the end of the day, the salary rises up. But this is not sustainable though. So that's why I said we have written to government of Uganda to have the school coded. Our schools in crisis setting should all be coded, then they receive grants from government. So once that is done, our teachers will definitely receive the same pay with those other science teachers in other non-crisis settings. So that is the advocacy we are in for, and we are working towards it. The second question on guidance and counseling, I presented it as part of task sharing, that teachers who are qualified do their part at school. When the learners are still within the learning institution, teachers perform their part. But when they go home, then the community members and other stakeholders also have the capacity to do that. Specifically, examples in this context, we have protection partners who are trained in handling protection-related issues. So reference is made to them by the learning institutions, they are able to handle. And then two, in this crisis setting, we have what is called a village education committee. Now, this comprises of people with the knowledge in teaching and learning and management of teaching and learning. So those are the approaches, and I think the two questions are up there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Salia, do we have time for some more questions, or should we start wrapping up?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. We can have 2 more minutes, so go ahead with a couple of questions, Marianne.
Okay, let me pose a new one. We do have some maybe that we could maybe try to address later, maybe through email, but let me ask a new one to World Vision. Elena, the question is, it would be good to know more about how the school-based ambassadors work in the mentorship programs. Could you elaborate on the role and the responsibilities of the school-based ambassadors in the mentorship programs?
Thank you very much for your question. For this one, the school ambassadors, these are like coaches who are supporting teachers who are implementing the digital learning. So they are trained, and they follow up with the teachers. They support them in the classroom to offer professional guidance on how to integrate the digital literacy in the classroom. They support the teachers also to access the content online, and also even to support the teachers in terms of acquisition of ICT skills. So they are very instrumental in this, in terms of the coaching and mentorship. The classroom observations are conducted every month. Every teacher is supported in this. Every teacher is supported in the classroom, whereby the coach will.
Hello, Elena. I think she cut out for me. I can't hear her.
So, Marianne, if she's not back, we can just give the floor back to Jerusalem, maybe. What do you think? It's okay?
That's fine, Salia. Please go ahead.
I wish we had more time, because you have made this session very, very interactive. And thank you very much for that, Marianne. And thank you also to all the presenters and panelists for their insightful responses. We are really, really grateful. Now has come the time to close this session, but we cannot do so without giving the floor to our colleague, Dr. Jerusalem Azmerau, Project Officer at UNESCO IGBA, who will be wrapping up and making some reflections. So, Dr. Jerusalem, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Salu. And dear participants, thank you for availing your time and sharing with us your wonderful insights and experiences from the field. And as always, also thank you our audiences for attending this webinar and for creating a vibrant discussion. For us, it's a timely webinar as the world is preparing for World Teachers Day on the 5th of October 2023. And on this year's World Teachers Day aim to put the importance of a dignified and valued teachers profession at the top of the global agenda, with the main focus on teaching in hardship, that is bringing teachers to every learners, which fits to our webinar's objective. And in these webinars, as many of our panelists mentioned, our continent Africa have been facing various conflicts and crises, and as it is stressed by many of our presenters, Dr. Kabede, Dr. Alabacho, Dr. Ola, and Peter, that how they expressed how these conflicts or crises affect the teachers and they have indicated us different challenges: the locality of education, including high number of untrained teachers and overcrowded classrooms, and in some instances there is also a lack of functional education systems, resulting in poor planning and lack of regulation concerning the equivalence or recognition and the motivation of teachers, including the issue of certifications. And in this webinar, issues of teachers' well-being, the need for mental health and psychosocial support for learners and teachers during crisis to help them cope and enable learning in time of crisis was also stressed very much. And we also listened the innovative approach and teachers' practical experiences. The World Vision Kenya, Elena has shared with us the innovative approach they have used, the education innovative model they have used to address the issue of teachers shortage and quality of teaching. And she has explained the 4 pillars of the approach: the learning tools, the learning through play, dialogue literacy, and the digital learning, which focuses on the main components of parents and community, on quality and centers, and mainly strengthening them, including the continuous professional development. And in a similar manner, Will International also share their 20 years of their experiences. Thank you, Simon, for sharing your experience, your organization's own approach on how to create access for quality education at all levels. And I myself was really encouraged to see how the teaching qualification on how supporting teachers qualification is really working in the area, which I think many of the African countries are struggling so far. And our head teacher also provided us examples on what works well in this context, and with the importance or the stressing on some of the strategies like the leadership, the classroom management, creating conducive school environment, and the professional development approach that they are following to succeed. And in conclusion, in this webinar, I can say that we have learned that African countries are being challenged to meet the SDG 4 in 2030, and one of the reasons is the disruption of education system due to these conflicts and emergencies in the continent. So we therefore must make the right to education a reality for all children, and we must ensure quality and equality in education through quality teachers by creating a resilient education system that can respond to the emerging trends, putting teachers as the main pillar of interventions. And this system can be created as seen from the presentations and the sessions through evidence-based interventions, through partnership, leadership. We can see how the IGAD commitment, the Deputy Declaration is progressing through good participation and partnership, leadership and country level ownership, and through advocacy. So we need a policy advocacy tool, a tool as presented by our colleague Peter, a policy tool, and also the declarations and some of the available resources that has been presented by Amy can be a very good input to progress and to achieve what we have aimed for the education in crisis contexts. And we really thank you once again for attending this webinar. And I may over to you, maybe Sally, for
Thank you very much, Dr. Jerusalem, for brilliantly wrapping up this session. I would like to thank all the participants for their very active contributions and all the panelists, the presenters for their insightful presentations. So thank you very much once again to all of you, and I hope I will see you. We will see you later in our next webinar. So yes, my colleague is asking participants to turn on videos for camera. We'll be taking some pictures. And for your information, the presentations will be shared to all participants. So please turn on your videos, and our colleague will be taking the pictures. Marianne will be taking the pictures. Marianne, over to you.
All right, everyone, could you please turn your videos for a moment? We'll take a couple of quick snapshots. Please give me some time. Don't turn off your video until I let you know.
Yes.
It can take some time for people to turn on. However, Saliu, I'm only getting, maybe because of the format I'm in, I'm only seeing just the panelists right now. I can't see the presenters.
Yes.
Maybe they've been turned off, unfortunately.
Yes, that's because
the
of the
presenters.
platform.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So Sally, maybe we can't take the picture today, but maybe for next time, we'll invite them to the third webinar happening in, I think, a few weeks. And then we can take a group photo then, and hopefully they will all join, and we can do one maybe at the beginning when people are, or halfway through before people start to leave. Okay. Sorry for my background noise.
No problem. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marianne. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you for joining. Really, see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. And please feel free to email us. I've put the email in the chat box if you have further questions.